is Kamran Akbarzadeh, CEO of Project Control Academy, and I'm very glad today to host this LinkedIn Live session. As you might have noticed, we didn't have LinkedIn Live sessions for some time, mainly because after the conference, we got some time off to reset, recharge. And now we are back full time. Last week, Shora had a great session with Nick. And this week, we have another guest. As you might have noticed through the posts that we've had on social media, we are going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, for transforming the project delivery. And I have great guests with me today. But before I bring our guest in, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself, where you are joining from, and we're glad to have a good conversation with our guest today. Please note that we ask you to listen and then share your thoughts, ask questions, and really that interaction is what we're looking for. And if you think that this is a good session, you can share that with your connections so they can also join this live stream session. The session is not just on LinkedIn, it's also on YouTube channel that we have, as well as the Facebook page that we have for Project Control Academy. So once I see chat coming or questions coming, I will share that with the rest of people on this video. So please keep those comments and introductions coming. Now, getting back to this session, as I said, we're going to talk about AI. And as we know, projects are complex. They generate lots of data. And really, if we don't use the data in order for the success of the project, then we miss a lot. The one thing that is important is how we can leverage the data that a project generates. There could be a lot of tools out there for visualization of the data, for reporting data. But I think in order to see what this data can give us about what could happen in an intelligent way, therefore, artificial intelligence is something that can be really useful. But to me, it's been more talks than really action in this area. We know machine learning has been there for a long time. We know artificial intelligence has been there. Lots of companies are using them, but in projects, really, I don't know how it has been used, or it's being used, or it's going to be used for forecasting, for predictive analytics. And that's why I have a great guest with me today, Lloyd Skinner, with 25 plus years of experience as a project professional and as the CEO of Greyfly.ai. He's with me today to share his thoughts, his insights about AI for transforming project delivery. Hello, Lloyd. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hi, Kamran, and good afternoon to all the people logging in as well. And thank you for inviting me. I look forward to a chat. And like you said, any questions, welcome as we go.
Very good. Thank you very much, Lloyd. I really did not go into details. I didn't introduce you the way that usually people introduce, going through the whole bio, because I want to have the first question on this part, right? So about your background, how you've got into the field of like AI in projects, and maybe sharing a little bit about Greyfly.ai and what you do and with your team, how you help projects succeed.
Of course, Kamran. So as you said, I've been around projects, well, probably 25 plus years now. Every year they just clock on without noticing. So I have an academic background. I have a master's from the London School of Economics in information systems. And I'll come back to why that's pertinent in a second. But my career was post-university. I started off as a project planner. I then ended up leading a team of planners, and then into project offices, project support offices, which are now much more commonly known as program management offices or PMOs or control functions. And then over my career, somewhere it got a little bit blurred between supporting project delivery and actually being responsible for project delivery. So I became a project manager, a program manager, and very much over time had PMOs then reporting into myself. I guess in terms of flagship experience, I ended up at the BBC for some 9 years. And although I ran a couple of projects there, the most notable ones were full multi-year, multi-million-pound transformation programs where I was the overall program manager. So I would have property, technology, operating model, business change, PMO, all reporting into me. So very much from the client side and full life cycle as well. Turning back to where Greyfly was born, it's one of the reasons why I mentioned LSE is because some 4 years ago we went on a 25-year anniversary, and that evening I basically reconnected to my business partner. She'd gone off to work for the big 4 consultancy companies. So, you know, the likes of Deloitte or KPMG, PwC, those type of companies in an assurance role. So very much providing, hopefully, the insight as to helping projects get back on track. And that evening we got chatting about, you know, projects and project failure, in terms of failure, in terms of not necessarily delivering to the original plans and budgets or releasing the benefits. And basically out of the back of that, that's where Greyfly was born. That you know, that evening we felt that we could start applying some of the knowledge that we had from our academic background, our experience of working out in industry, and basically apply AI to increase project success. And roll forward today, we started off conceptually thinking about PowerPoints and what it could be, and then we turned that into, we were lucky enough to be grant funded in the UK, and we turned that into our first MVP. We worked with the likes of the BBC, the Civil Aviation Authority, Gleeds, if you guys might know Gleeds. Gleeds is a larger construction project management company, and HS2 as well in the UK, the UK's largest rail project. And then out of that MVP, we've now productionized the system and are working with real paying customers, which is great, and you know, really pushing forward. So that's about intelligent project prediction, and the keyword being prediction, obviously.
Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing the story, background, and how Greyfly.ai was born. Many times these small conversations also really result in great things. So now let's start. I just wanted to say who is right now online. Usually our system doesn't show the correct number of people, but we have John Kivitz from Denmark, Gulam from Saudi Arabia, a LinkedIn user, it doesn't say who, from Canada, Jose or Jose Alex from India, Jose I would say, Shirazi from Iran, Rogers from Zambia, Catherine Bakhnia from United States, Rakesh, India, Paul, Nigeria, so Canada. Thank you very much everyone for joining this session. Now, before I start questions, I want just to give you an idea about the outline of our conversation today. So, we are going to talk about the context of AI in project management. So, the definition of AI and what it means when we talk about AI in project management. We talk about the challenges for implementing AI in project management. And also, we will share with you an example. I mean, not me, but Lloyd will share you an example, a real example of application of AI in project management. And if we get time, he will also share with you a demo of the dashboard and how things can be monitored. So let's get started. And whenever we discuss these topics, please share your questions, comments, and I go through them during our conversation. I don't leave things to the end. So if I see questions coming, I will ask Lloyd to answer. Okay, so Lloyd, let's start with the AI, overall the context, the definition. What is AI in project management? So we know what AI means, but when we talk about AI for project management and for project delivery, what does that mean?
Yeah, the first thing I'd say, Cameron, is that the application of AI to project management is still relatively nascent. So in terms of what it exactly means and what it could mean in the future, I think it's still relatively early days, even though certainly here in the UK, there is a lot of discussion about the application of AI in project management. There's a recent report published by the Association of Project Management in the UK. But it's nevertheless nascent in its maturity and its growth, if you like. So I will give you my view of where AI is going in terms of project management, but the longer term view is who knows. And for me, I almost have to take a step back and almost sort of say, what's the purpose of a project in the first place? And for me, what we're trying to do is deliver value, in a timely fashion in a controlled financial fashion, and obviously deliver lots of benefits. And I appreciate that I'm being relatively crude in what a project is about. But for me, if we can apply technology to increase the likelihood of success, for me, that's what AI should be about. So if I break that down further and start thinking about it in terms of planning and problem solving and delivery and decision making, for me, that's the context. Now, taking that further still, in terms of AI that I see at the moment, there's two basic thrusts, if you like. One is down the arm of prediction, and how do you predict a high level of confidence that a project outcome is in line with a plan and will meet the plan and the budgets and therefore unlock the benefits. So there's the prediction side of things. And then the other side is the automation side. So how can you run quicker? How can you run more efficiently? And both of those for me are about, not necessarily taking the human out of the loop completely, but certainly augmenting the human so that the human can then focus on more higher value tasks. And in my humble opinion, those more valuable higher tasks tend to be the softer side of projects and project management. So influencing, decision making, stakeholder management, those type of stuff. So if we can apply AI to do tasks or workflows more efficiently in a repeatable form, we can then let humans focus on the higher value tasks. So yeah, prediction and automation, Cameron, in my particular view.
Very good, very good. The two aspects, prediction, automation, and I like the fact that you also mentioned decision making, stakeholder management. even lessons learned, right? So depending on the project itself and previous projects, how can we kind of leverage the lessons learned from other projects? Very good. Thank you very much for the definition and what it means when we say AI in project management. Now, you mentioned overall, I would say at a high level, the AI, where it could be used. What are other use cases of AI in project management? What use cases do you see? Because sometimes we talk about today, or we may have some information from past, but how do you see this going in future? Things are changing, we know, but what use cases do you see for AI in project management?
Yeah, I think just going back to my point of prediction and automation and sort of unpacking those a little bit more. So on the prediction side, I think the number one use case is about risk modeling and mitigation. So enhanced risk management and hopefully earlier in the project life cycle as well, so that you've got the opportunity to address risks earlier and obviously if a project is live, and depending where it is in its life cycle, it's much harder to course correct a project which is nearing the end of its life. So for me, the number one use case is about risk management and risk mitigation. Beyond that, I think what we are seeing in lots of places is the whole area of predictive analytics. So the prediction of the outcome of a project, and similarly, sitting alongside that, data analytics. So more descriptions of what is good or what is bad. So bear with me, if projects that have a certain set of features tend to run late, I don't know if they use this particular supplier or of this particular methodology or this particular project manager, dare I say it. If you can understand the features that lead to project success, that has value in its own right, and obviously you can start making that more real time as well. So understanding what leads to success and then predicting whether those projects can move forward. And then back to the other part, I guess, is the automation. And if we can automate the more administrative end of tasks, so in particular things like the dreaded reporting, I'm sure we've all been there, where you have to produce one set of data for 5 different customers. If you can press a button to do that, or scheduling in terms of meetings as well. So even things, you'll start to see a proliferation of systems that record a session like this, create it into text, so you no longer have to get it then translated as well. So all of that is in the project management ecosystem in my mind. So really around those 4 key areas. There are others, but I think those are the 4 key for me.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much for sharing the use cases, and especially they are linked to those 2 aspects that you mentioned, prediction and automation. Now, let's talk about the benefits, right? So I think many talk about the AI and its use. What are the benefits that if companies apply AI in their projects, they see the results? So current benefits, if we want to convince, let's say, top management or project managers that they need to use AI in their projects, and what you see in future, what's coming about the benefits that they can get. So is there any really advantage of a company or project team using AI in their projects for prediction and automation versus those that they don't?
Yeah, I think, if I initially talk about desired benefits as opposed to actual benefits, because I think the actual is really interesting in terms of practical case studies as well, and back to my point about nascent technology as well. So, you know, in terms of the desired benefits, for me, again, and perhaps these are relatively obvious. So the first one is about insight and foresight. So understanding your project estate, no longer looking backwards and thinking about reporting historically. And yes, of course, we've had lots of different ways of forecasting and predicting the outcome. But if we can have a tool that then also has the power of machine learning and can compare to those forecasts that we've been traditionally doing, that gives us greater confidence in the outcome of projects. So for me, there's this whole point that project executives have a desire to make the right decisions around projects, and that desire is about confidence in delivery. And you know, I'm sure we've all been there. There's some horrendous statistics about you know, the likelihood of project success compared to original plans. And unfortunately, we're not great, but as an industry, we are continuing with the same methods, etc. So for me, it's about assurance and improving decision making. It's the first one. And then similarly to that, as I was mentioning, it's about that prediction side. So knowing the likely outcome, which then in turns helps you with risk management. You know, if you're really up in the early stages of the life cycle, maybe you're having significant changes to the way a project's delivered, or maybe you're even taking it out of the portfolio and adding a different project in. So decision making and risk management, I think, is two of the big benefits. The other one is sort of related to automation, Kamran, which is, you know, machines can cope with data more rapidly than we can. And you know, I've been through this debate of you know, assessing a portfolio of projects. Yes, of course we can do it, but you know, you might need an army of people, you know, who have brains the size of planets and might go away for, you know, an extended period of time to reach some conclusions about a portfolio. The beauty of a system is that you can do that, and you can do that in real time, and you can update it as the world is changing. So you get the benefits of the automation piece going on, and you can take admin out of the way projects are working. But you can also, you know, back to those earlier benefits around improved decision making and risk management as well.
Okay, great. So lots of great benefits you mentioned, Lloyd. I want to bring a couple of questions that our audience is asking, those online. And I think it's more about comparing what you're talking about, the AI, the prediction side of it, the visualization side of things, decision making. For example, Gassam is asking, needs some clarity on project prediction using AI versus earned value. So can you provide some light on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question for me, and you know, whether you're using earned value or whether you're just using the mind of a project manager to forecast, I think what I'm proposing here is almost an extra layer of comfort. You know, so almost an assurance piece where you can compare how we've traditionally forecast to what a machine can then also predict. And you know, what we can also, you then can get into those debates about, do you trust the machine? And obviously over time, you can prove that the machine is or more or less accurate than the human forecasting as well. So for me, the way that I certainly position it is very much as an added wrapper, so an assurance piece where you can compare traditional to this added tool. And that almost goes back to what I said at the beginning, Kamran, where, you know, it's about augmenting the human with you know, new, faster, revolutionary toolkits to help the improvement of projects. So it's not to dismiss additional, you know, existing methods at all. So.
Exactly. And I think the second question by Gaston is the same thing. So now another tool, Monte Carlo analysis for risk analysis, risk management. And that's the same thing, right? So it's the tool versus if we could use machine learning and prediction by over time. So as you said, right, it takes time for the system to learn and then predicts. But when it's done, then that really is going to be helpful as an assurance for decision making.
And it's that proof point, Kamran. It's that credibility,
Yes.
because you know, when you introduce new technology, we all have a distrust. I don't know about you. Do you press the park the car button on the car yet? You know, you're slightly nervous to use it. So you know, you have to get over that hurdle. So I think that's where we're at in this space at the moment as well. Yeah. So credibility is really required.
Yeah, and I think we are approaching maybe a tipping point, right? So who knows when that tipping point is, but when it comes, then things shift toward that side and people do not look back. So again, thank you everyone online. Please bring your questions, put your comments, and we'll go through them. Now the next question is about the industry, the sector, right? So people talk about AI in health industry or health sector, AI in oil and gas, AI in renewables, AI in construction. And all of these sectors, industries deal with projects. Now, is there any difference when we talk about AI here, AI there? Is it basically we're talking about the same thing or it's different?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Kamran. And of course, you know, as you dig into each sector at a certain level, projects operate differently. You know, at the task level, construction projects, for example, are completely different to software development projects. They're following different methods. There's different human stakeholders. There's different in importance. There's certainly different work breakdown structures and critical paths and all of that sort of stuff. So if you're in the depths of a project, I think it's very unique by that particular project, probably unique by the project itself, you know, that alone, the customer or you know, the entity responsible, that alone across the sector. So at that level, I think it is very unique and you know, an interesting challenge, if you like. I think if you then take a step back and put that on its head and start thinking about that from a top-down point of view, we start seeing projects in a much similar way. You know, so for those agile people on the call, I'll just talk about it in a more waterfally kind of way. You know, there's a start, middle, and end of a project, or a design phase, a specification phase, a build phase, etc. So if you start looking at projects at that level and start asking the big questions, such as, you know, do my projects go live regularly to plan? Do they meet budget, etc.? Then you're starting to see consistency across projects, across company, across sector, if you like. So, you know, for me, they can be similar. I think the other thing that we're seeing is the adoption is different by sector, and weirdly enough, I was having this debate yesterday with a professor actually, who and I was looking at the statistics around this, where I was saying our experience is that the construction sector is actually leading the way in this space in terms of the pushing how to adopt AI, whereas other sectors where there are huge amounts of projects run as well are actually more intrigued around this area. So yeah, I think, you know, ultimately at the top level, there can be similarity, and similarly you can start sharing data as well across projects, across industries. But yeah, there's the pace of change is different per sector.
Exactly. The pace of change is different. And that's interesting. You said that construction industry is leading the way for the use of AI. Usually we say construction is lagging behind for digitalization and digital world, but it seems that based on what you see, it's leading the way for AI. Great. Now, let's talk about the challenges, right? So you mentioned the pace depends on the industry as well as the companies in there. So why do you think businesses hesitate to implement AI in their projects and for really the more successful project delivery?
I think, and apologies if I'm slightly repeating myself, I think the number one reason is about proof points and credibility, and the sort of show me, demonstrate to me that it is worth the investment. So for me, back to that nascent point, and back to Kamran's point about a watershed moment. If we can start demonstrating value to customers, I think we'll start moving forward. The other thing is that this is not necessarily easy, what we're trying to do here. I mean, somebody's mentioned in the chat there, maybe we'll come back to that, about data, and this is a complex implementation. If you're trying to learn from historical data, well, what's the quality of that data in the first place? You need to understand the processes that are creating that data. You need to get hold of that data, which may be in lots of disparate systems, etc. So it's actually not necessarily an overnight fix. It's not necessarily a plug and play solution to get the real benefits here, if you like, which then sort of comes into the sort of change management piece. People might feel that there's a skills gap here. They might not fully understand what's happening, and how to ask the right questions and how to go about that. So that good old resistance to change, and possibly needing more experts within an organization. And then last of all, I think it's sort of linked to resistance to change. It's about that compatibility with existing systems. We've just gone through a nightmare of implementing whichever project tool you might be using, and now you're suggesting we throw it away and start again. And I think people are scared about that as well, because implementing anything is a change in its own right. So for me, those are probably the key reasons why people are hesitating.
Yes, great. So the hesitant is there, but let's say a company says, okay, the people inside the company, they encourage the management and they say, great, so we're going to just do that, and let's try AI. They start, but after some time, they may not see the results that they were expecting, because we always try to be very optimistic about things, right? So, but AI, machine learning, this takes time for the real benefits to be observed, I would say. So the adaptability and then continuity and the discipline of using that is another challenge. Do you agree? Can you say what are those things that happen inside companies after they start maybe implementing AI? What stops them from continuing?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that you're saying there, which the first point about it takes time, I think is interesting, and that relates back to again what the chat's written here in terms of the historical data, because the more historical trusted data or high quality data you have, the more likely it is to accelerate that process. However, what I would also say is that traditionally, and I know there's lots of different ways of doing this, we report on maybe a monthly basis up the line in our organizations. So in other words, every time that you produce a progress report, you have a new cut of data that you can learn from as well. So you know, those two factors are related to how quickly you can go on this journey. And similarly, I think what you have to do is link it back to the credibility, which is prove to people that you're getting value out of a system and that you are providing confidence in the outcomes you're declaring as well. And you have to do that as quickly as possible. Time allowing, I can unpack that a little bit more, but I can tell you within 6 to 9 months, you can have fairly accurate, confident predictions, and certainly more accurate than a human at the beginning of a project as well. So, you know, again, maybe that's really 6 to 9 months, a long time. I guess it depends on your view of a project life cycle. So
very good. Thank you very much for sharing that. There is a question from, I think we talked about the historic data. The next question is from Hong and Cami Lee. Can AI be used for data collection rather than data analytics?
Yeah, the short answer is absolutely yes. Yes. I mean, you know, obviously, the quicker you can get your hands on the data, the quicker it can become high quality, the more you can do with that data. But yes, there are lots of tools to, if I use the word, mine the data, so grab it from all its different sources. I mean, we've been doing that, maybe not in a PM lens, we've been doing that for years across other technology solutions. Yeah, so yes.
Okay, now before we move to solutions, Lloyd, I wanted to also talk about how we as people working in projects, not necessarily the decision makers, can really bring that awareness of the benefits. What actions can we take as people working in organizations to really bring things to the attention of the decision makers and say, this is going to work, this is going to be helpful in projects for project delivery. Any thoughts on that? And then we talk about some solutions and an example that you would like to share.
Yeah, of course. Well, my first thought is you know, sort of what we're doing here, which it starts with awareness. You know, so whether that's awareness as us as individuals or awareness of you taking that to your executives to say, you know, there's some exciting stuff going on here out there at this moment in time, and you know, that awareness may be in its own right supported by, you know, professional bodies with publications. I mentioned the AI and APM paper, for example. If need be, I can send people the link. But so I think awareness starts, and then, you know, if you can then move towards executive buy-in, well, how do you get executive buy-in? Well, it tends to be back to credible proof points. Now that's the, you know, if you can demonstrate return on investment, you're going to grab people's attention. I think conversely, at the moment, the type of executive that is more likely to be open to that is those ones that have a more innovative mindset, because of where we're at in this journey, in the nascent nature of the technology. You know, the type of person that you're talking about there may be more innovative as well. I think, you know, ultimately the best way to do this though is show people, and how can you do that? Probably put a pilot in as quickly as possible. You know, I mentioned 6 months to 9 months earlier. You know, a pilot, you can benchmark exactly where you are. You can show that the system is possibly better than how you've traditionally done work. You know, so there's that. The other thing is, at more practical level, I think the one thing we can do more in the delivery level is start having a more data-driven approach. So, you know, silly things like, you know, we've got this as humans, we've got this perennial view of churning data out. And I would challenge you to say, those data points you're creating, are they actually being used? And for me, the simile is, if I think about this in my project management days, is, do I really want to know what a resource is doing on a second by second, a matter of fact, or a day by day, or an hour by hour? What I really want to know is the deliverable on track. So for me, it's about understanding your existing processes, taking a step back and thinking about it from a data-driven point of view, and challenging yourself as to, have I got all the key data points in place, and get that consistency and those processes under control. So
very good, very good. So now, before I ask the question I had on the solution side, there are a couple of questions that I want to bring up. One is from John from Denmark. How much structuring of the data is necessary before we can compare information between databases and projects?
Yeah. Great question, John. And I think how much depends on your organization, doesn't it? So if you've been operating in a similar way for many years, probably very little, assuming the data is what you'd expect to find around your projects. What we've done actually is proved that you can predict a relatively high level of confidence with a limited set of data points. So we have about 100 data points that we work for to use. So imagine things like, I don't know, go live date as a single data point. So hopefully you've got a library of your projects around go live date, and you then unpick that, say, maybe the baseline go live date versus the actual, versus, if it's a live project, the forecast. So I think you'll find it's less than you expect if you start looking at this from a top-down point of view. So hopefully that answers your question, John.
Very good. The next question, I don't see any name with that, but what are the challenges with the industry? I think we talked about the challenges maybe within companies, but what about the industries? Adaptation of applications of AI for project management?
Well, I think it's a sort of similar answer, Cameron, and in terms of what we said. Each industry might be slightly different in terms of its innovation, in terms of the projects it runs, but those challenges you have are pervasive to all industries. You need executive buy-in. You need to demonstrate, that you'll get value from implementing the system. So I don't think it particularly matters, apart from back to resistance to change and getting the right sponsor, everything that, any project needs to get it going,
Very good. Very good. So now let's move to solutions. What are some tools and technologies, solutions available for implementing AI in project management for successful delivery of projects?
Yeah. So I'm going to focus on the prediction side, because that's more where my knowledge is. And the way that we classify this type of area is well, Gartner did the hard work for us. Actually, they classify PPM tools into sort of 4 levels, if you like, and they range from collaboration tools through to work management tools, to executional PPM tools, and then up to dynamic portfolio level tools. So if you like, you think about the use of those tools. The collaboration tools are things like Slack and Teams, where you're sharing information, and obviously that as we're all seeing, they're becoming increasingly intelligent in terms of helping us with our day jobs. If you go further up the line there, there's, over the last few years, there's been a proliferation of prediction type tools appearing. Certainly in the UK, we have Nplan and Shark Tower. which are very much generally aimed at the construction area, which use prediction at the task level to improve the likelihood of success of projects. And as somebody mentioned, there's also the relationship with the BIM model, in particular Alice Technologies is one of those. There is, every month I start to see new companies appearing, which is, you know, on the one hand flattering in the fact that you know, we've been in this space for many years, but we're seeing lots of market entrants. I guess where we operate as a company is slightly different. We operate at that top level, that dynamic portfolio level. So you know, the types of people that we appeal to are those executives looking over a portfolio of projects and asking those big questions about what's the likelihood, likely outcome of this project. Give me assurance that this project's going to succeed. So you know, a lot less users than a tool such as N-Plan, which is, you know, one per project manager or one per project controls expert. So yeah, those are the sort of four big categories on the prediction side where you're seeing proliferation of tools, as it were.
Very good. Thank you very much for sharing some solutions around this. And we see also Gaston is sharing about augmented reality and BIM and things like that. So now, in the few minutes that we have left, Lloyd, I want you to talk about maybe an example that you have that you've done, because you've been in the AI side with Greyfly AI for the last 3-4 years. Do you have any practical example to share? Because we've had cases that people come to a session, it's more theory, and then they say, has there been any practical example that I can hear about? So do you have any practical example to share? And also maybe you share kind of a demo, anything that you want to share, maybe in the next 5 minutes you can.
I'll give you the context quickly, and then maybe share onto this screen. So the challenge we had was with a global FMCG organization, and what they wanted was greater certainty over their delivery outcomes. And more importantly, for executives, they wanted to know that they were directing their limited time at the right projects at risk. And the example I'm going to show you in a second, or a mini-me of that example, that particular client has 200 live projects, and you know, again, when you compare back to original plans, there's a significant proportion that might not necessarily deliver to the plan. So in terms of the solution that we've created for those guys, we've basically built intelligent project prediction system. It's a dynamic platform that predicts the outcomes of individual projects and compares to what is actually being reported or what is being forecast. I guess the additional bit that we as a company also have been working really hard on is what are the drivers for success or failure. So what are those features that lead to a project succeeding? You know, is it a certain supplier? Is it a certain type of project, etc.? And actually, we can look at that both on an individual project level and across a portfolio. So basically, we undertook a 6-month pilot. It went through six steps, if you like. The first one, really pertinent to the question earlier, which was the data discovery. What data have you got around your projects? Where's it held? What systems? How much of it? Is it quality use? We then built the infrastructure. How do you get that data into the system? There you can see the second step there. So built the infrastructure so that you've got the pipelines of the data coming into the solution as rapidly as possible, and obviously we then configure that system, because every company that we work with runs projects slightly differently, whether that's project stages, project gates, etc. We then handed it over to the customer and provided a set of insights which allowed them to review what we're showing, which in its own right, you know, which is outside of our remit, allows them to go off and transform their capability. How do they do projects better next time? How do they do projects better in the future? If we know, for example, working with this particular supplier, I'm picking on suppliers for some reason today, means that projects are likely to fail in some form, perhaps we need to have a more investigation into that particular type of relationship. We're then obviously supporting that as regular updates of projects come. I'm going to show you a couple of screens quickly now, just to hopefully whet your appetite. So just shout, Cameron, if can you see that okay? Yeah. So I've jumped. This is a demo system. It's not as interactive as the full working system, and the outcomes that we've had with this particular customer are you know, they've got an operational system that predicts their individual projects. It also, and again, I'm you know, I should have recognized this earlier, you know, actually it completely has a relationship with the drive of data quality and in turn project management maturity capability as well. So, you know, if you're not producing the data, or if your data is poor, why don't you? If you accept that that's an important data point around your project, so you assure those project outcomes, everything I said earlier about the forecast versus the projects. And of course, what it does is identify the key projects at risk. So let me show you this very quickly. So I'm just going to show you the two key user journeys. And the two key user journeys that you've probably heard me mention a couple of times here is which projects are at risk and can I do better in the future? So you can see here there's a ticker tape across the top, and given the portfolio, there's 100 projects, 60 are open. So we're looking at the baseline as opposed to the original baseline. We're looking at open rather than completed projects. We've got rid of poor quality data. You can see front and center the confidence in the prediction, because obviously we don't want anybody taking decisions on low confidence projects. And over here in the middle, you can see this difference between what's being forecasted. These are all illustrative numbers versus what's being predicted. And you can see there's a 20% difference with those. If I then follow through onto the red projects, I can start thinking about, well, which are those red projects from a prediction point of view? So I've just skipped into, within this portfolio, there are 45 of the 60 projects at risk. And just to highlight this point, you can see the difference between what's being reported versus what's being predicted here. Now, over here on the left-hand side, as well as seeing the actual outcome and how that varies compared to what's being reported, you can see the drivers for this. So those more eagle-eyed of you might see that or might be able to guess which particular customer this is for. The business unit automotive is the number one reason why these projects are reported or predicted as red. So back to what I said earlier, perhaps you want to go and investigate automotive projects in their own right, and you can see a number of other reasons. Actually, also, if I just skip down one journey, if I've looked at that one individual project, BMW parts distribution, I can also look at similar projects. So if that one particular project is the highest predicted at red, maybe there are attributes that are similar across other projects which are also driving prediction to be red. In other words, how do I do projects better in the future? I need to home in to look at those individual features. So that was very rapidly taking you through the individual project way. If I look at it more about looking across the portfolio, you can see here, same as the ticker tape, the prediction is higher than the forecast, and same point here. But you can see the features that are driving the delay, and business unit is the number one reason as to why projects may be late. So which is the sponsoring business unit? Again, for illustrative point of view, you can see it's automotive, but there are some other reasons as well. Now, we have deliberately worked hard to try and make this as simple as possible, very sort of web front end, mobile type based visuals, if you like. So, you know, back to where we come in is at that more executive level to look across your portfolio rather than the individual task level. Each time you can drill into these areas further as well to pull out which of those individual projects are being driven, and therefore as somebody at portfolio level, you can start examining the individual project and really start drilling into that individual project. So like I said, this is something that we've done. We've had the scars. We're on iteration number 4 of the IPP system, and the customers we have are now really starting to see the benefits and very much positioning it in that insurance role, and where should I direct my limited time, as it were. So Kamran, I'm going to stop sharing now and come back on screen.
Very good. Yeah, we are back to screen. Thank you very much. This was really interesting. And I think what you just showed answers this question. I would say that Hongen is asking, in construction industry, the challenge is progress and reporting. Would AI be able to collect these critical data and accurately help for reporting? And I would say, based on what you showed, if we collect the data, analyze them, and then use that predictability aspect of AI, that could help, right?
Yeah, and also I think it's back to that credibility point, because we don't trust the system at the moment. So if we can demonstrate over a period of time that the system was more accurate, I think that's really important. So with that particular customer, when project started, after 9 months, we've now just proved that we're 100% more greater than 100% more accurate than when they've been planned originally. So in answer to the question, the short answer is yes.
Very good. Thank you very much, Lloyd. Now, before we close, can you share with people how they can reach to you, learn more about Greyfly AI? Is there any demo that they can kind of use, or maybe have another session with you to see how they can apply for their projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I've just grabbed the screen again quickly, Cam, just so that I bring that slide up. So anybody can get in contact with myself or my business partner using the QR code there. That will take you to my LinkedIn profile. So please do link with me. The first thing we do, obviously, once we said hi, we've got a demo video we can share, or we can have a conversation. So yeah, please do get in touch. I'll just leave that on screen for a little while longer.
Great. Yeah. So I think the website is there, greyfly.ai, and then the profile, LinkedIn profile, you can connect.
Yeah.
So very good. Thank you very much. And I think our audience now are also thanking you for the great presentation, Lloyd. If there is any questions about the AI and project management and you want to ask Lloyd, you can connect with him on LinkedIn, and he'd be happy to help out. So with that, we end this session. Thank you very much for everyone who attended this session. Again, if you want, you can share this one even after it's done. You can share the recording, which is available on LinkedIn, with your connections, so they can also benefit. With that, any final words, Lloyd, before we close?
Well, of course, thank you, Kamran, and thank you for hosting and inviting me, and thank you to the audience for listening. I hope I whetted your appetite and just started to prove that there are real use cases out there that us as an organization, and I'm sure one or two others are pushing forward on. So please do get in touch if you want to hear more. So yeah, thank you once again.
Very good. Thank you very much. Exactly. So this session is really one of those sessions that is for awareness. And when we are aware of the tools and examples and capabilities, we can go back and say, okay, now we can think differently. We can create new mindsets in people that we work with, because you want it or not, things are moving.
Yeah.
So we have to really be open to new technologies, new ways of doing things, and not to really stick to whatever traditionally have been done. Because if we do, and if our companies stick to those, we are going to be left behind. As I said, there's going to be a tipping point that if that's met, things shift very quickly, and then you might be behind. So try to learn about AI. Definitely there are challenges, but see how you can overcome the challenges by meeting people like Lloyd or other experts in this area, and then have a presentation for your company, for your group. And that would be a good beginning. And then at some point, you would be a hero of your projects, your organization, because you brought the idea and they implemented that. So thanks again, Lloyd. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and see you next week with another LinkedIn Live session. Bye.
Thank you, Cam.